found someone who was later identified as Anita Knutson, deceased in the bed.
She's laying on her belly, or on her chest, I'll call it, and we'd lifted. She had a bathrobe on.
A stab or what appeared to be a stab wound to the middle of her sternum.
The firefighter indicated she was cold to the touch.
Police have no doubt they found Anita Knutson dead in her room. But will the prosecution be able to tie her death to Nicole Rice? We'll have the latest on the toxic roommate murder trial. Plus, tensions will be high in Dedham, Massachusetts this morning as attorneys on both sides of the Karen Reed case are making their final push for what makes it into her retrial. Also this hour, a deadly hit and run caught on camera as police say an 11-year-old and 2 young teens deliberately killed a bicyclist. But is 11 too young to be charged with murder? Our power panel weighs in. Plus, we're getting you all ready for the all-important closing arguments in the military wife murder trial. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you, or should I say happy Friday Eve or happy first day of spring. It's all those things. I'm Julie Grant, and this is Opening Statements. We have a tremendous show planned for you this morning, so let's get it started. Grab your cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Think of the children. Think of the children that belong to Ashley and Jordan Henning. What must it feel like for them? You know, I would imagine it would be hard to put into words. Their mom is gone, taken away from them by their father. And now he may be taken away from them if he's sent to prison. It is just awful. And my friends, I was thinking about this because sometimes when we watch trials like this one, we can get so lost in the testimony, in the arguments, in the evidence, all of that, that we forget about the victims that we aren't seeing. There are 2 sons and a daughter that make up the Henning family. And undoubtedly, they will never be the same after June 26, 2023. That was supposed to be a happy day, as you know, celebrating their mom's birthday. But instead, it will forever be the day that they so unfairly experience the horror and the trauma of their mother dying at their father's hands. So let's send the Henning children every good wish, love, light, good thoughts, and prayers that they may continue to heal from their trauma and that they may continue to find the strength to move forward without their mom, and that they may find some comfort in knowing that their mom, Ashley, and her service to our country will never be forgotten. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
I got pulled in because I don't know why I got pulled in, but I got pulled in. Like a dummy, I went with him. He told me I won't let anything happen to you. You're not from here. No one's looking for you. And that's what I've been told.
In California, the state is recalling hitman Christopher Austin and the celebrity hairstylist murder trial. That should get interesting. Court's going to start up at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And in New Hampshire, we've got closing arguments beginning in the bad blood shooting case for Jason Levesque. That one starts up at 9 a.m. Eastern. And in North Dakota, we've got the toxic roommate murder trial for Nicole Rice starting back up at 9:30 a.m. Now, to our top story. It will be a big day in Dedham, Massachusetts, as defendant Karen Reed heads back to court this morning for a motions hearing ahead of her retrial, where she's accused of the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now, the trial date is currently set for April 1st, but we know that Reed's team is asking for a delay to April 28th. Now, Judge Beverly Cannone is considering several other motions. Some of them were argued on Tuesday, including one that alleges witness intimidation and harassment.
The first trial, I'll note, was riddled with what we believe to be inadmissible and highly, highly prejudicial testimony from a bunch of witnesses who took the opportunity to describe harassment and distress that they felt from third parties, both on social media and otherwise. No third party, including any blogger, any social media personality, any member of the public, no third party speaks for Ms. Reed,
I can appreciate the defense wanting to identify the line in which they would open the door to evidence about harassment and abuse of witnesses. I understand why that would be important. But to convert that into a speech that absolutely defies reality and grossly misstates the history and facts of this case is beyond me.
He said that I stood up here just a second ago and attacked witnesses and bashed witnesses and made fraudulent statements. Was he listening?
Court's going to resume at 9 a.m. Eastern in Dedham, Massachusetts. I have a feeling we may see some more fireworks. And here this morning to talk about this case, two people who've researched it, covered it, and podcasted about it. I'm so pleased to have on the program the co-hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. Good morning to you both. And I have to tell you, I remember when you put out your podcast about the murder of John O'Keefe back in the summertime, last summer. Remember really appreciating it then, and I went back and listened to it again last night, and there were so many things that I want to bring up this morning. I don't think we'll have enough time, but the two main things I just wanted to shout you out for and commend you for was your focus on the victim, on John O'Keefe, and also the intolerance you have for the bullying and the harassment and the disgusting things that have been going on connected to this case. So I wanted to start there because they really didn't finish what they started on Tuesday, as you both know. This is going to come up again, and Hank Brennan has really, I like to say, brought down the house of cards and made the link public between Karen Reed and Turtle Boy. Would you both speak to what you found in researching and podcasting about this case and the ugly harassment that's gone on? Anya, ladies first, please.
Absolutely. And Julie, thank you so much for that kind intro. We really appreciate it. And thanks for having us on your show. It's awesome. So this is a case where we've absolutely seen this playbook of the defense essentially utilizing social media influencers, utilizing bloggers like Turtle Boy that you mentioned. There's obviously a very direct link here where these people are basically running with talking points. And they've really succeeded in, I would say, polluting the public narrative on this case. But not only that, they've actually basically been waging a war against many of the witnesses in this case. There's been harassment, people being stalked, people being threatened. It's totally unacceptable. And I think you're absolutely right when you say Prosecutor Brennan has really exposed this in public. And I think this should be concerning for everyone, regardless of your opinion on the overall case, because this is not how our system should be working. There should not be this sort of trial by combat before an actual trial in which witnesses are essentially, put through the ringer in this way. It's just, it's absolutely unfair to them. And it's just kind of like reminds me of like gladiatorial combat where these people are kind of put through this gauntlet, and it's based on pretty flimsy evidence and a pretty flimsy narrative. But yeah, it has been very effective for this defense team, though.
Right, and I love how you put that, Anya. You're such a great journalist and writer, and the words you're using, combat, war, I mean, yes. And Kevin, you're an attorney as well, for anybody who may not know that. And when you were looking at the evidence, going back to your podcast, I remember you saying that for you, I mean, this is such a clear case of forensics in a homicide by vehicle while DUI. Would you please take us back to what you found in cutting through all the noise when you looked at the pieces of evidence that were actually discovered here?
Yeah, when you actually look at the basic facts of the case, it's not that complicated of a case. It's actually very, very straightforward what happened here. And I think that's actually part of the reason why we've seen some of the social media distractions and why we've seen the harassment of witnesses, because that's the only option the defense team has in a situation like that. There's this old cliche you learn in law school that if the law is on your side, you pound the law. If the facts are on your side, you pound the facts. If neither's on your side, you pound the table. And what we've seen the defense do in this case is pound the table. And they've really caused a lot of harassment and done some upsetting things to innocent people.
Yes. It's been appalling to me, and just stunning. I think it is really the word for stunning. In all my years of practicing law, covering cases as a journalist, I've never seen anything like this. There is such a vile mob mentality that is part of one side of this case. I want to play for you both a clip from something that has everybody talking this week, the Investigation ID documentary on Karen Read's case, and they filmed with her during the first trial, as you both know. And she says something that none of us had ever heard before in all her varying versions of stories about her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, that night. Let's look at that clip.
I've never dated someone or been intimate with someone that they're just completely extricated. You can't get a hold of them anymore. It was just a weird feeling, but now I just want to save myself, and I just want to be who I was before this, and I care less about fighting for John.
That's the one we have. Okay. Okay, so I made a little error here. I thought we had the clip available where she talks about when she comes upon John's body in the snow, she finds a piece of glass. You both know the clip on the side of his face next to his nose, and she plucks it off. And she adds another detail about him also taking with him her vodka soda glass. We had never heard that before in the docuseries. First time that came out in one of her stories. Hank Brennan brought this into the courtroom. Let's look at the clip of Hank Brennan talking about it on Tuesday.
We learned last night, for the first time on a public airing of an episode, that the defendant suggests that Mr. O'Keefe took her vodka soda glass out of her car. Now, that is the first time we've had any statements from Ms. Read suggesting that, and also there was another statement regarding a claim that Ms. Read pulled glass from John O'Keefe's face.
Okay, let's talk about this new version of events. I'm curious your reactions when you heard her say that. Anya, what did you think?
I was completely shocked that we're hearing this for the first time on an ID special. And for me, this really underscores the risk of the defense's strategy. They've really tried to try this in the court of public opinion, convince people that a big conspiracy is afoot, right? But when you allow your client to be doing all of this press around the case, stuff like this comes out, and I think it could be used as ammo against Ms. Read during trial. So it kind of shows you the risks.
Right, it sure does. Hank Brennan is so sharp, as you both you know his reputation. He's, I'm sure, just adding it to the list of media clips he's going to use to show the jury all of her inconsistent statements. Kevin, I want to ask you, please, about something else that came up on Tuesday, the ARCA witnesses. We all know about the material misrepresentations the defense made about them lying to the court, saying they were independent and unpaid. They were not. The judge found that they lied and falsely misrepresented that to the court. She's still allowing them to go forward with these witnesses. You said, Kevin, in your podcast, you were unpersuaded by them at the time. Do you think now with this mess and this cover-up of all of their communications and the payments that they'll be less persuasive this time?
Yeah, I think they would be actually much less persuasive this time, because now it is known that there is this conflict here, that they are not as independent as we have been led to believe. They're just, in essence, another expert for the defense.
Mm-hmm. And last time, did you feel they were unpersuasive because they didn't have all the other evidence from the Commonwealth? Was that really what did it for you, that they didn't look at anything the Commonwealth had?
Yeah, in essence, they were just looking at what was provided to them by the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were just looking at evidence provided by one side, obviously that side can tailor what they give you so that you can arrive at whatever conclusion they want you to arrive.
Right. I appreciate that. Before we go, I just want to give you both the floor. Anything else that you think is important to note about this case? I would love to have you both back on as we progress closer to trial. Any quick final thoughts? Anya?
Julie, we would love that. And we just want to commend you for sort of shining a spotlight on some of this harassment. I think that this is going to be a playbook for high profile cases going forward when it comes to harassing witnesses and basically putting them on trial. And I really don't think that is typically a good use of our system. I think there might be cases where that's warranted. There might be cases where that's okay. But this is a case where I think the public opinion has been completely exploited. I would encourage people to keep an open mind going into trial, because I think a lot has come out about what's gone on in this case that we didn't even know when we first covered it. And I think, all is not what it seems in the Karen Reed case.
Isn't that the truth? Oh, so well said, Anya. And thank you for that kind compliment. Kevin, to you next, please.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Anya said. I just fear that these sorts of tactics by the defense, we're going to see these more and more often in other high-profile cases. I think it's similar to what we saw in the Delphi case, which we also covered, and I fear it's just going to become the norm.
Great points. Kevin Greenlee, Anya Kane, you are the Murder Sheet podcast. You're incredible people doing incredible work in the true crime and trial space. Thank you for coming on the show today. And my friends, check out their podcast. This isn't the only case they talk about. Believe me, they talk about everything. And I'm looking forward to having you both back very soon. Take good care. Now, coming up next here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got for you.
Just bump him, bruh.
Just bump him?
Yeah, just bump him. Go like 15, 20.
Children charged with murdering a bicyclist, and it was all caught on video. Plus, defendant Jordan Henning's fate is soon going to be in the hands of the jury. We're talking about what we can expect in closing arguments. Now for what's trending in true crime, 3 people, including an 11-year-old, have been arrested in the fatal hit and run of a bicyclist. All 3 suspects are under the age of 16, and the incident was caught on tape.
Are you guys recording it?
Yeah.
Oh God, you got politics.
So.
You ready to start commenting? Hurry up and start.
Him hella fast. Just bump him, bruh.
Just bump him?
Yeah, just bump him. Go like 15, 20.
And we're making a choice to end that video right before 63-year-old Scott Habermill was hit by those suspects on his way to work in New Mexico. This happened last May, and sadly, Habermill died because of this incident. Police have now arrested a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and that 11-year-old in connection to the crime. The 11-year-old, believe it or not, has a long rap sheet. He's only 11. Back in 2024, he was a suspect in stealing electric doorbells from homes. An individual later identified as the suspect back stolen vehicles into a store, and several other individuals enter. In May, you got this vehicle crash. This is just horrific. June, he was a suspect in a shooting, which a teen told police he was shot in the hand by a friend. Yeah, he's just, oh my gosh, he's 11. 11. Had an outstanding warrant. I don't even know what to say. All 3 boys are charged with murder. We're asking this morning, is 11 too young? I mean, that might be a real special 11-year-old right there with that rap sheet, but 11, I mean, just think of that. This is hard to even comprehend. I have 2 tremendous attorney guests on the show today. I want to bring them in now and have them weigh in. Michael J. Brown and John Phillips are here. High profile, heavy hitters. 11 years old. Okay, is that too young? We're starting with that question. Michael J. Brown, to you first, please.
Good morning, everyone. Most states, and I think all states in our union, probably say yes, it is too young to be charged with murder. And in this particular case, I don't think he actually is charged with murder. But on a personal level and being in the system for so long and seeing how things have gone since I was a young prosecutor. I do think that an 11-year-old should be held accountable, but with the caveat, Julie, that, you know what, maybe the sentencing obviously would be much different than in an adult situation. If a 40-year-old is convicted of a murder, obviously you can do life without parole, and in this particular case, I think in New Mexico, they actually have the death penalty. So in terms of a sentencing parameter, I certainly think an 11-year-old should be treated differently, but to give them a pass, and you know, this is a classic case when they can formulate that intent. You look at the video, you see their actions. They shouldn't get a pass because of their age. This is not, well, I should say 11-year-olds are different from one to the other. This 11-year-old is not an infant 11-year-old. So yeah, I think it should be something that should be prosecuted.
Yes, yes, I'm with you, Michael. John Phillips, to you next, please. Your thoughts on this kid.
I agree with Michael. You know, we're in a weird, horrible spot where the limitations of justice are facing, you know, kind of, it's one thing for the streets to raise the kid. Now we have the internet raising kids, and radicalizing kids, and we have kind of this Grand Theft Auto culture, which this is a scene out of almost the video game where you can kind of do whatever you want and cause whatever harm. But these, you know, this 11, 13, and 15-year-old are already career criminals. And so the justice system has to be able to hold them accountable. And frankly, I want to see them round their parents up and hold them accountable, you know, to the extent that's possible, because this is just, it's immoral, it's depraved, it's everything wrong, you know, with where we're headed in some ways in America.
Yeah, great points, great points. John, you made me think, and you do civil work. Tell me, is the civil suit possible here, in your opinion?
It certainly is. And the car was stolen, so, you know, from that standpoint, you've got a 13-year-old operating without a driver's license in a stolen vehicle. And you know, excuse me for being a pessimist, but I really doubt his parents are properly insured. So, you know, it's one of those cases you've just got to go, you know, for purposes of justice sake, you might find some insurance, but like, you know, in some of these cases, you'd go after the person whose car was stolen for leaving their car in a place where it could get stolen. That's not what we do. You know, that really didn't help justice. It just moves money around, you know, but we have a $495 million jury verdict against an uninsured murderer who's sitting in jail because you've got to hold them responsible. You've got to teach others that this is not okay. So certainly there's a civil remedy, but it'll be difficult to recover.
John, thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot for that. Appreciate it. Now, let's talk about intentionality now, please. I want to show you both another look at that video. Listen carefully to what the suspects are saying right before that fatal moment.
We ready to start combat. Hurry up and start.
Him hella fast. Just bump him, bruh.
Like, just like bump him?
Yeah, just bump him. Go like 15, 20.
Just bump him, bro. Just bump him. That's what they're saying. This is disgusting. You know, police believe these three suspects intentionally crashed that stolen car into Mr. Habermehl. And investigators say that the case likely would have gone unresolved had it not been for them being so bold to post it on social media. Yeah, I guess they thought it was funny. Now, as we listen back to that video, we're asking, how much does intent matter, right? You hear them use the language, just bump him, bro. But they killed him. They killed him, is what police detectives have found here. John, let me start with you this time. Intentionality, does it matter?
It does matter. You know, so there's two types of intent here. There's the intent to cause harm, bump him, bro. Like there was an intent to inflict reckless, extreme endangerment, you know, the second-degree murder kind of stuff. And then there's the intent to kill. And, you know, somebody's going to say, well, they didn't intend to kill him. But this is why 11 and 13-year-olds don't have driver's licenses. They have poor judgment. These kids had extremely poor judgment and a history of it. But that's why they've charged conspiracy here, because the three were all going along with this intent to hit a person on a bicycle flush, not even like just kind of tap, with a gun, with a gun in his hand. So while there's probably no intent to kill, I think it's right at that line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're there. They've got the murder charge. Michael J. Brown, having been on both sides of criminal court, you're serving as a prosecutor and then doing criminal defense work in the private sector. Curious, is there any hope for these guys when it comes to a defense because of what they were saying in that video, or does it just make it worse? What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. If they go under an intentional theory, as John just described, I think that's the weaker of their theories. New Mexico, as New York does, as most states do, they have what's called a depraved indifference subsection under a murder statute. I don't think this was an intentional murder in the sense that, hey, we wanted to kill this individual. But the depraved indifference, to me, is a much better theory to go on as a prosecutor. And that's really where you have this unjustifiable risk. You basically couldn't care less about human life. You're not meaning to kill. But, hey, look, by what your actions did, it's going to result in death. And that's exactly what happened here. So if the prosecutor went with the intentional theory, I think that's going to be the weaker theory, and that's more defendable as opposed to the depraved indifference.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. Michael, tell me, as a quick follow-up for you, please, if you were representing this 11-year-old, what would you do with him? How would you approach the court with him?
I'd probably, and I don't know anything about the case, but
Sure.
my initial reaction is this is a very troubled kid with probably no parenting, no role models, no mentors. He was doomed from the beginning, and I would try to build up as much as I can up to this point in life. Not an excuse, but there's some mitigation, and then there's some sympathy saying he had no direction. He's only 11 years old. Let's treat him as such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great points. I appreciate you and John are so awesome. Let me put you guys on the spot with these questions come into my head as I'm talking with you both. So Michael J. Brown, John Phillips, stand by kindly, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next.
Please just kill me. Don't send me.
I'm not going to do that.
Please do that. Just kill me.
Absolutely.
In about 30 minutes, we're going to hear closing arguments in the military wife murder trial. We've got a retired JAG officer joining us live next to talk about the case. Plus, testimony continues in the toxic roommate murder trial for Nicole Rice. Can the prosecution prove she was the one who murdered her roommate?
During that entire investigation, did you ever determine that the defendant was not a suspect?
No.
And why is that?
I was suspicious of her from the very beginning, just because of her demeanor when she went into the apartment.
Now let's talk about what's tipping the scales of justice. Testimony resuming this morning in the toxic roommate murder trial. Defendant Nicole Rice, accused of fatally stabbing her roommate Anita Knutson back in 2007. Prosecutors say that Rice lied about her whereabouts at the time of the murder, and they plan on calling a witness who says that Rice drunkenly confessed to the murder. Now, the defense has offered an alternate suspect, Rice's former boyfriend, Devin Hall. This after a man was seen running from the apartment.
Do you remember her telling you about a Native American man with a bloody shirt running from the scene?
She said that there was a Native American man running, I believe, on 4th Street, northbound, and that he had some sort of stain on his shirt. She said it could have been blood.
Do you remember how tall she said he was? 6'2", does that sound right?
I think 6'2", early 20s, 200 pounds.
Okay.
We did identify that person.
Okay, so is this going to tip the scales? Hall's expected to testify. He's currently in jail on an unrelated matter. So would that testimony tip the scales of justice? Let's bring back in our legal eagles, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Michael J. Brown, and criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips. Okay, Michael J. Brown, let me start with you. What do you think is going to tip the scales of justice in the toxic roommate case?
Tough case, Julie. You're talking about a case 20 years old. And clearly, I think what you know and what you can prove sometimes are two different things. There's bad blood between these two roommates. There's no forced entry. I think that there was something else I forgot, but there was something else that was pertinent.
Her lying about where she was. Is that what you were going to say? Her lying? Yeah. Nicole Rice lying.
I think there was no theft. There was nothing taken from the home.
Right.
What does that tell you? That tells you that it's an inside person. There's no motive other than I want to kill this person. So the focus is on the roommate, but you have to prove it. Now, I know there's some evidence that there's going to be this statement from an ex-boyfriend where she allegedly confessed. Well, you got a boyfriend who obviously there's going to be some bad blood. It's an ex-boyfriend. They were in a drunken area in a bar. How valuable, incredible that type of testimony is going to be remains to be seen. But really, I think it's going to rely on the forensic evidence. And I don't know if they have much of that. And without that, I don't know if they're going to be able to get a conviction in this case.
Really good points, Michael. John, to you next, please. What's tipping the scales for you here?
Yeah, I think it's, as a defense tactic, I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on the investigation and say, you guys didn't really even investigate this. You didn't have the resources to investigate this. You had to bring in a TV show. And the counter to that is, well, regardless of how we got there, the evidence is the evidence. And, there was this tension between the roommates and a statement to the effect of, I'm going to get you out of here one way or the other, and what looked like a bit of a staged scene with the cutting of a window screen and all of that. But it is hard. We talked last week about, the 48 hours after a murder, how important that is. Well, we're way past that. We're way past that, and it's tough to prove.
Yeah, that's right, John. A great point. Ooh, I mean, this is an old case, and the family is so hopeful that there can be justice for Anita. I want to play a clip for you both of Anita's adoptive mother who gave testimony, and this is so key. Her name's Sharon Knutson, and she talks about how, thinking back all those years, her daughter Anita was really scared of Nicole. Let's watch.
When you talked about things not being good between Anita and her roommate, was there anything specific?
She would say things like, I have to do this or that before Nicole gets home. Just not comfortable things. One time I went over with her to the apartment, and she said she had to feed the fish so they wouldn't die, because if they were dead when Nicole came home, she was afraid what Nicole would do.
Okay, let's talk about how that tips the scales. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, they're roommates and they don't get along. But let's keep in mind, not having a good relationship and taking someone's life in a vicious manner are worlds apart. So how important that is, I don't know. I mean, certainly they had a bad relationship, and that's somewhat sympathetic to the prosecution. But again, you need some solid forensic evidence that I think is going to corroborate it. That in and of itself, Julie, I don't think is going to get them far.
Appreciate it, Michael. John, your thoughts on the fear that Anita might have had with her roommate at the time?
Yeah, there's better lines in the testimony than the fear of retribution for not feeding the fish. But, my roommate is my wife, now, so we don't fight at all. But, for all the times of having, although there's 3 little ones in our house, and sometimes they're horrible roommates, but, all the times that I've had a roommate, you do get upset. There are issues, but you don't calculate in murder, them. And again, the families watch shows like this. I know they come back and see clips of court TV, and our hearts go out to them, because, you know, they've wanted justice, they've wanted answers, they've had this feeling for a long, long time, and hopefully they get justice in the criminal court.
Oh, that's the perfect note to end the segment on. John, thank you so much for that. Our hearts go out to the Knutson family. I know we have to let you both get off to court. You're busy attorneys. Thank you for the time and the expertise this morning. John Phillips, Michael J. Brown. We'll look forward to having you both back next Thursday morning. And coming up next year, we are getting ready for the closing arguments in the military wife murder trial. I'm talking a little fast here. When we come back after the break, I'm talking with a retired JAG officer about what we can expect from both sides.
I destroyed lives that day, and the people I loved, and I can't bring that back, and I can't fix this situation, and I'm sorry, and I know that'll never be enough.
I said, that glove won't fit OJ, and if you don't ask him to try it on, I will.
Why do an experiment for the first time in front of a jury? It was utter incompetence.
We believe the glove was his.
It was a setup. They weren't fitting it.
That was O.J. Simpson's best acting.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? A Court TV original series. New episode Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining a spotlight on the military wife murder trial. Did an Army officer murder his wife in cold blood? Or did he snap? Was he the victim of physical and mental abuse? I want to show you a live look at the courtroom. Jordan Henning, the defendant, just walking in. Today, the jury's going to hear the all-important closing arguments in what has been a very emotional and really intense trial. Perhaps the most intense moments were when the jury got to see horrific surveillance footage from inside the Henning's home showing Jordan Henning killing his wife, Ashley.
You killed that young woman because of the hell you brought to that house in that 20 minutes. She called the police to save herself, her children, and neighbors. And that call was going to end your job in the military. And you killed her. And you wanted to make sure she was dead and went back and shot her again.
We know Henning took the stand and said he was experiencing extreme emotional disturbance at the time that he killed his wife. But the prosecution says, no, this was a first-degree murder. What's the jury going to find? Will they find something less? Will they find manslaughter here? And what should both sides say in their closing arguments? So pleased to have back on the show retired Air Force JAG Lieutenant Colonel Sally Stenton. Sally, good morning. I have been talking on the air about you since you were on the show with us last week, giving us analysis on this case. And I've mentioned to a couple other guests something that you said to me in a call we had off the air after you came on the program. You said, you know, Julie, in the military, we're taught to kill and to capture and to exercise restraint. And you said, I'm just not seeing it here. I want you to tell all of our viewers what you're seeing with him and why, and how it makes you hearken back to the training that you got when you served for so many years.
Yes, of course, you're
objective in the military is to kill and capture the enemy, but you're also taught there's rules of engagement. And in the rules of engagement, you cannot kill an unarmed combatant. That's a war crime. And in this case, his defense is putting forth that he snapped, he was under extreme emotional distress, and he was being threatened by his neighbor. He felt threatened by her because she had grabbed his testicles, and he was in that military mode. But even in that military mode, he knows he cannot, she's unarmed, she's completely defenseless. And in watching that video back, he shot her 4 times, his gun jams, and he tries to clear it, which you're taught to do, but he is extremely deliberate. He doesn't run to reload. He walks very deliberately. He reloads that weapon. He walks back. He racks that round, and he shoots her again. He's very deliberate in his actions. There's no fear in him whatsoever.
Hearing you talk, I mean, it's just chilling, thinking about the things that you experience in battle, in training, all of that. And it's like, am I correct, Sally? It's like, where was that training? Where was all that training in those moments? Because aren't you taught that even in the worst of moments, you've got to control yourself?
Right, you have to have discipline. And he went to that National Command Training Center 9 times. And yes, they teach you how to behave in combat, but they also teach you restraint, discipline, and they teach you defense tactics. I don't know a man alive that if someone is grabbing their testicles, their instant defense reaction is to grab the hand of that person. So when he says she's been doing this for years, that he has never defended himself, that's just unbelievable to me. And the only person, to my knowledge, that testified that she physically abused him was him. I didn't hear any testimony from anyone that they saw him ever physically abuse him.
You're right.
The only testimony was him physically abusing her that day.
You're so right, Sally. Boy, that's an excellent point. I have that moment you just referenced. For anybody who missed it, let's watch it back again, where he claims she grabbed him by the testicles and dragged him.
Did you think you were in danger?
I absolutely thought that.
Is there any doubt about the testicles being pulled by the testicles? Was there any doubt in your mind that had happened?
No.
I know she grabbed you by the testicles before. Was this worse, better? What was different about this?
The worst it's ever happened. I've never been drugged 10 feet by I just couldn't get her off of me. It just wouldn't let go.
Sally, watching it again, you don't believe him, do you?
No, it just sounds ridiculous. I keep looking at his mugshot, and it appears that he's well over 6 foot, maybe 6'7", and he's claiming that she's grabbing him by the testicles and dragging him. Is he just standing there with his hands up? Is he not grabbing her and trying to get her off of him? It sounds ludicrous.
Great points, great analysis, and thank you for the great service as well. Lieutenant Colonel Sally Stettin, always a pleasure to have you on Court TV. Thank you for everything with this case. We're going to get ready for the closing arguments very soon.